Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sankalp and I represent the business development at PMS EIF World. We are a modern day new age digital investment platform, and if you've been following us, we have been representing the investors choices, concerns, and we take responsibility to present portfolios, quality portfolios, and fund managers and people at the helm of affairs at various portfolio management services, so that they can come connect with investors. Investors can point blank ask their concerns over this media, and I hope we've been doing well, and we continue to do well ahead also. And in this endeavor, we have two very special guests with us, Akhil Chaturvedi and Santosh Singh. They represent Motilal Oswal AMC. Akhil Chaturvedi is the head of sales, and Santosh Singh is the head of research at Motilal Oswal AMC. In this call, we will discuss their flagship strategy, NTDOP, which stands for Next Trillion Dollar Opportunity. This particular strategy has been one of India's largest PMS by size and has a lot of happy investors invested in it. There have been a year or two of performance that has been dragged due to various factors. We will try to understand how MOAMC is looking at them and improving investor return there. So with further ado, I will hand over the floor to Akhil and then eventually Santosh to take up questions. Also, at the beginning, let us for a disclaimer, we will discuss a lot of stocks in these sessions, hopefully, and none of them are to be construed as stock advices. Over to you, sirs. Please begin. Thank you. Akhil, I think you're on mute, Akhil.
Sorry. So thank you, Sankalp, and good evening, friends. Thank you so much for logging on to the call. I do hope that all of you are doing safe and you're doing fine. Today's call is basically to discuss and update all of you on our Next Trillion Dollar Opportunity portfolio. As Sankalp mentioned, this is our flagship portfolio. It is a very old portfolio with a track record of almost 13 years. A very successful portfolio and very popular amongst the investors, and therefore it is also the largest portfolio in our PMS product line. As of now, we manage about $1 billion, 7,500 crores in this portfolio. Now, the purpose of doing this call was basically to address some of the concerns of the investors who've entered in the last couple of years around the performance. So it would be interesting from that point of view to update all of you as to how we look at this strategy going forward. But before we discuss going forward, I wanted to basically share with all of you that as an AMC, we believe in our philosophy, we believe in our conviction on our portfolios, and we have phenomenal skin in the game in all our AMC products. So as on September 30th, 2020, our overall prop investments or prop commitments into our own funds was in excess of 2,600 crores. These are investments made by our listed company, Motilal Oswal Financial Services, and also in individual capacity of Mr. Ramdev Agarwal and Mr. Motilal Oswal. So the entire surplus funds are basically invested in our own funds. There is phenomenal investments of almost 200 crores in the fund which we are discussing, Next Trillion Dollar Opportunity portfolio, and hence we completely empathize with all of you when we look at some of the short-term performance. But we are here for long haul, and we believe that what we have delivered in the last 13 years, we would deliver on similar lines or even better in the next 10 years and next 10 to 15 years. So on that backdrop, I've put together a short presentation which I would want to run through all of you. And then subsequently, we also have Santosh Singh, who's head of research at MOAMC, who would update you on some of the stocks, and we'll take questions. Before we get into the current performance appraisal or the future outlook, I thought this would be a good opportunity to share with you how this fund was carved out, how this fund got created, how it has done in the past 13 years, what is the present situation, and then what is the future possibility. So the presentation is basically divided into 3 parts. I request Sankalp and Santosh, if you could mute yourself. There's some background noise which is coming. So when we look at the past, this fund, as I said, was launched in December 2007. And if you remember, that was the peak of the market then at about 21,000 Sensex. And then January 2008, we were hit by global financial crisis. And within 1 month of the launch of the fund, markets crashed phenomenally. And this fund also crashed by almost 53%. So 100 rupees became 47 in 2008. And since then, the fund has delivered 5.5 times. So 100 rupees, which came down to 53, is now today valued at about 550. So that's in a nutshell. But this fund, the way it is named, Next $1 Trillion Opportunity Portfolio, was basically created in 2007 when India touched the first $1 trillion mark. It took India 58 years to become a $1 trillion economy in 2007, as you see out here. And we thought that at that point of time, that now incrementally Indian growth rate will be much higher. Every $1 trillion will come at a much earlier pace than it has come in the past. And therefore, what would be the themes and what would be the opportunities which the fastest growing or fast growing economy would throw open to investors? We would invest into those themes, those stocks and those sectors which would tend to gain from the rising economy. Now, from 2007, we were a $1 trillion economy, and as we speak, we are a $2.5 trillion economy, right? So the second $1 trillion basically came in just about 7 years. Then in the 8th year, we got closer to about $2.5, $2.6 trillion. And we certainly hope to touch a $5 trillion economy, not by what our Prime Minister says, maybe by 24, but even by conservative estimates, we should reach that mark by 2030. That is, those are very, very conservative estimates. And as I said, that from $1 trillion economy to $2.5 trillion economy, the fund has delivered a compounded return of 15% per annum, 9% over the benchmark, and it is valued at about 5.5 times. So 100 rupees invested is about 5.5 times as the economy traveled from $1 trillion to $2.5 trillion. So this is how the product got created on this theme. Obviously, as the economy rises, the per capita income rises. When we were a $1 trillion economy, the per capita income was about $1,000. $900 out of the $1,000 was basically going in the basic spend, and only $100 was going into the discretionary spend. Since then, as the economy went up 2.5 times, the per capita income has doubled. So every $1 trillion basically doubles the per capita income. While the basic spend remained at about $900,000, you had incremental $1,000, which was basically going into the discretionary spend. So when people have more money, obviously, once they are done with their food, clothing, housing, all the incremental money, it basically goes in upgrading the lifestyle, or it goes in savings. And that's how in the last 13 to 14 years, we have seen a big boom in the housing sector, rapid expansion in the consumer durable markets. There are more cars which are getting sold. People travel a lot more, both domestically, internationally. So as people have more money, more discretionary money in their hand, people tend to spend a lot of that money in upgrading their lifestyle. And these are some of the sectors which basically tend to benefit from the rising income in the hands. So that was the whole theme. Now, when we launched the fund very early into 2008, 9, 10, we bought into companies like Eicher Motors, Page Industries, Bajaj Finance, and most of these companies were actually not even known to anybody of us, right? And once we had bought these companies for many, many years, these companies, the stock price of these companies actually didn't move much. So if you would have invested in 2007, Santosh, I think you need to mute. Santosh?
संतोष आप म्यूट कर दीजिए प्लीज.
हाँ, म्यूट कर दिया.
Yeah. So early on we bought into all of these companies, and as you can see that these companies delivered some great profit growth numbers. And as you can see in the last 5 years, literally the profits have doubled, tripled, and even quadrupled. These companies continue to deliver some great numbers, but their stock prices never moved for many years in the initial phase of the fund, and then you had this massive bull period between 2014 and 2018, and these 5 companies mentioned out here all became multi-baggers, and these have been some of the success stories which has made Anti-Top what it is. So if you look at individual stocks, while the Nifty 500, which is the benchmark, broadly has doubled in the last 5 years, we have seen Bajaj Finance, which became about 15.5 times. We've seen Eicher Motors at 11 times. We see Page Industries at about 7 times. We see Voltas at about 8 times. So this is how wealth creation is done over 10, 12, 13 years. So it's not necessary that wealth is created over 3 years and 5 years, but sometimes it takes many years and many years of patience into very high quality companies with very strong growth rates. And as you live through the growth cycles of those companies is eventually when you experience the wealth creation journey, right? And it's never straight line. So if you see, while all of these stocks are multi-baggers, but they've all been through their ups and downs, and over the time they have tend to deliver some phenomenal growth rates. In percentage terms, Eicher Motors has grown 62% in 5 years, Page Industries 24%, Bajaj Finance 73%, so on and so forth. Now again, when you look at the track record, and why I'm talking about the past is because to understand the present and the future, sometimes the answers lies in the past itself. What has worked in the past will work in the future. Generally, the success formulas don't change. And again, if you look at this slide, from 2010 to 2018, there has not been a single year where the NAV has actually gone down. And there has been a straight line growth of 25% compounded from 2010 to 2018. It was only in 2020 where for the first time there was a small drop in NAV of about 1.5%, and then of course now it's rising here in 2020. But here is where post-COVID there was a correction which led to the underperformance over a 3-year period. But broadly, since 2010 to 2020, the fund has delivered 5.6 times. In fact, this is now, as we speak, 5.7 times. The benchmark has delivered about 3 times. Post fees excess return of about 2.6 times. In percentage terms, the fund has delivered 14%, benchmark 9%, and there's an outperformance of 5%. So this is the long-term track record, and this has been built by going through several cycles, following the right philosophy, which we talk about, following the investment frameworks of quality, growth, longevity, price, sticking on to the winning ideas and wait for them to play out and create wealth for the investors. And in that process, you do go through phases of ups and downs. Moving on, again, when you look at long-term track record, so what we are doing here is basically looking at 3-year rolling returns, and there are many 3-year rolling returns periods over the last 13 years. Broadly, most of the times there has been outperformance. I would say 9 out of 10 times we have delivered outperformance, barring the last 3 years phase, where, as I said, that post-COVID correction has impacted the 3-year returns of the portfolio. But that doesn't mean that it's going to remain this way. We have done well in the past, and we are very sure and hopeful. And I'll explain to you that the golden days will come back very soon again. In absolute returns, if you look at 2009, the fund delivered 21% excess return. In 10, 39% excess return. So there are years, and especially years after this fund lives through some kind of a cycle, economic cycle, this fund tends to come back very fast and very hard. So if you look at these phases of 2014, when in a single year the fund delivered 44%, in 2015 70%, and so there are many years where the fund delivers very high returns. There are times where the fund will be flat returns, and there are also some times when there are negative returns. Average of all of this is basically what you get as 14% over the last 13 years or so. So the fund is an outperforming product. This has just been for the first time an outlier where the fund actually ended up underperforming, and we'll try to understand why that happened as well. So that was all about the past, why the fund got created, why it was named Next Trillion Dollar, and how the past track record has been, how the past performances has been. Now, when you look at the present and the recent performance concerns, so while we focused a lot on QGL, so you know our investment philosophy is QGLP. So Q is quality, growth is G is growth, L is longevity, and P is price. we had a lot of focus on the quality, growth, longevity, which is value side of the business, but price is what has caused a lot of pain in the last 2 or 3 years. So here, if you look at, while the companies, if you look at the company's ROE, so the quality of the companies continue to remain very, very high in the last 3 years. The profit growth also broadly was decent, I would say. That Page Industries in FY19 itself has delivered 14% growth, Eicher Motors 12% growth. It's slowed down for 1 year, but it is still delivered growth. But related to the profit growth, there has been some dramatic derating in the price earning multiples of these stocks, and that is what caused the negative returns and negative alpha. So this is some of the top stocks in the portfolio. But in the bottom, if you look at some of the mid cap names, and this portfolio has about 70% into mid caps and small caps, and the rest 32% into large caps. Mid caps in general in the last 3 years have given negative returns, and whether it is a high quality company or it is not a great company, the stocks have fallen down. So generally markets did not favor mid caps and small caps in the last 3 years. Having said so, if you look at companies like Godrej Industries, L&T Technology Services, Alchem Laboratories, IPCA, if you see, the green is basically how the profits have grown of these companies on a compounded basis in the last 2 years. But against the profit growth of the companies, we have seen that the PE multiples have actually contracted. Now it's about time that if the earnings actually play out, it's about time that markets would tend to give some re-rating to all of these companies which have done well in their business. And as they say that markets are slave earnings, so eventually the companies which will produce good earnings eventually will catch up on the price as well. So this is where the patience or the sit tight part comes in play. As long as the companies are doing good, the business models are good, the competitive advantages are there, the growth rates are there, I think it's only about patience and waiting for the prices to do a catch up, and you get back into making returns. On a macro basis, what happened in the last 3 years, as I told you, the fund is a multi-cap fund. Now the benchmark is Nifty 500. Now in Nifty 500, large cap is 82.73%. In our portfolio, we have 32% large caps. In benchmark, mid caps is about 12.5%. We have 53.96% into mid caps. Small caps 4.77%. We have 13%. Right now, typically large caps have done well in the last 3 years. Mid caps and this segment is basically which has got corrected, and we had about 53 plus 13, so roughly about 65 to 70% into mid and small. And this is where the correction has caused the pain. This part, the large cap part, has protected the portfolio, but the mid and small is where we've got that underperformance coming from. So broadly, 100 rupees invested in a Nifty 50 would be 109 today. 100 rupee invested in mid cap 100 would be about 79, and 100 rupee invested in a small cap would be about 61. Right? In terms of valuations, now the mid cap index is at a discount to the Nifty PE multiples. So it's about time that this the mean reward comes into play on the upside. Similarly, there is an interesting ratio we track these days, which is nothing but simply dividing the Nifty small cap 100 by Nifty 50. We did a back testing from 2004 to 2020, and what we have seen is that typically this ratio moves between 1 and 0.5. Every time this ratio goes towards 1, it says that the small cap segment is getting expensive, and you should expect some major correction. And every time you reach closer to 0.5 is where it is actually bottoming out, and you should expect some phenomenal returns to follow in the subsequent years. Every time this has happened in 2007, then it happened 2009 bottoming out. Here it was bottom again 2013, then it went up all the way till June 2018 early. After that, you have this massive correction, and the ratio is back to 0.48. So all this ratio is suggesting is that this is not the time to sell out of mid caps and small caps. Whether you look at the price earning multiple out here for the mid cap index, or whether you look at the small cap by Nifty 50p, the ratio, both these indicators are suggesting that these are absolutely the bottom. And of course, because they are the bottom, your past returns are looking not very good. But that doesn't mean the catch up will not happen. Eventually, we feel that next few years, the potential for the mid caps and small caps to outperform the Nifty 50 is very high, purely from the valuation perspective, right? So therefore, I would say that, and we would maintain the allocation to mid caps and small caps, because number one, we are very confident about the companies we are owning under this market cap bucket. Just that the companies have got corrected and have become more cheaper. In fact, we would love to buy more of these companies at the current valuations, and that would eventually help in the long term. So moving on, again, when you talk about the track record, whether you look at 2010, so after you lived through the global financial crisis of 2008-9, as I told you initially that the fund had corrected by almost 53%. In 2010, 1 year return of NTDOP was 117%, outperformance of 27%. And after the taper tantrum in 2013-14, in 15 and 16, the fund was up 140%, and the index was up just about 60%. So 80% of outperformance. So that's where I say that every time the fund will go through some kind of a cycle, some kind of an economic shock, some kind of a global crisis, whatever you may say. Today it is all about health crisis. So if this is what has happened after you come out of those cycles, if this is what has happened in 2010, and if this is what has happened in 15 and 16, you can well imagine what can happen once we are out of this health crisis, which is COVID-19. So that's again to give you some numbers. Now, alongside, obviously, we are also learning. I mean, markets teach you every day. Markets are smarter than all of us as investors. You have to learn every day. You have to learn from your mistakes. And therefore, what we learned, of course, was that while on one hand, our philosophy is 100% bang on. So I think with the help of QGLP, we are relatively successful in picking up very high quality, high growth companies. But I think when these companies make some phenomenal gains, we should be doing regular profit booking, and we should protect the profits from time to time. Similarly, there will also always be, one or two stocks in the portfolio which would be laggards. Either the companies are not doing well, or the numbers are not coming, or the stock price is not moving up, whichever way it is. But from time to time, we have to ensure that certain laggards in the portfolio is cut from time to time basis. And third learning, of course, it's more to do with Reliance Industries, is exclusion mindfulness. So, companies typically which are heavyweights in the index, and they go through some massive rally, and if you do not have them in your portfolio, or if you're under owning them, that also causes a lot of drag in the portfolio. So that's more of a learning thanks to Reliance Industries. So how do we do this? So every time the stock is actually breaching the maximum price, or it goes up beyond the fundamentals or ahead of fundamentals, we would try and book our profits regularly. In terms of laggards, we would look at companies which are actually where the performance to the underlying sector is underperformance, and there is a material fall in the stock price. There would be a caution gone to the fund manager, and fund manager would then appropriately take a decision to move out of the stock. As I spoke about exclusion mindfulness, in this portfolio, we did not have Reliance Industries. That was a negative weight of 9.5%, and that caused underperformance. Of course, now we have bought about 6% in the portfolio about 3 months back. HDFC and HDFC Bank had moved up. But against HDFC and HDFC Bank, we had Kotak Mahindra Bank and ICICI Bank as an offset. Against Infosys and TCS, we had two IT plays, Tech Mahindra and LTTS, as an offset. So here exclusion doesn't work, but Reliance, clearly not owning Reliance, did create some amount of underperformance. So these are so on one hand, as I said, QGLP continues to remain sound, and there is no issue out there. But on the execution side, I think we have to be alert on these three things. And using these three learnings, we have been trying to make changes in the portfolio. So there are three companies in the last 6 months where we have made our exits. So we moved out of Bajaj Finance in April. As I said, Bajaj Finance has been a multi-bagger in the portfolio. but the manager had a view that, and we were trimming on this stock since a while now, and we made a complete exit of 4% in the month of April 2020 after the COVID impact. Clearly, from manager's perspective, he felt the stock is expensive. Broadly, it was an unsecured loan book, and post-COVID, obviously, there were clouds around the moratorium and the NPA. So I think from that perspective, we moved out of Bajaj Finance, and we also sold out of Federal Bank. This is more of a recent exit. So we are basically trimming into financial. If you see on the slide, all three stocks are basically two banks and one NBFC. Jammu Kashmir Bank was a very, very tiny allocation. It's just cleaning up of the portfolio, just about 0.2%. On the other hand, what we did was we bought into Reliance Industries, as I told you, 3 months back. We bought into levers in the month of April itself after we sold Bajaj Finance. We've increased our weight to L&T Infotech, and very recently we've added into Birla Corp, which is the cement play. So there are 3 new entries against 3 exits, and the weights to L&T Infotech has actually gone up. So as I said, there are learnings, and around the learnings, we are trying to cut the laggards, which were like Jammu Kashmir and Federal Bank. These were clear laggards. And we are taking into certain stocks which would tend to have a positive momentum for the next few years. So what do you expect in the futures? I think eventually, as I said, that markets are slaves of earnings. Eventually what fund managers do is basically do solid research around companies, around business models, around the management, and eventually they track the earnings growth. We expect FY22 as we come out of FY21. Obviously, FY21 is going to be a dull year for earnings, but we have a very strong estimated growth for FY22, about 30% at the portfolio level, and the PE multiple related to the 1 year forward growth is just about 19 times, which means the portfolio is quite attractively valued. Certainly demands more top-ups in the portfolio on new investments, because you're getting hopefully 30% growth at 19 times PE.
Sorry to cut you, but can we start taking Q&A in another 5 minutes?
I'm coming towards the end.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So just one last thing, as I started off with talking about 1 to 2.5 journey, $1 trillion to $2.5 trillion. What would happen when we travel $2.5 to $5 trillion? We try to look at these 3 examples: US, Japan, and China. In US, it happened in the decade of 70s, 80s. It took 10 years for them to travel the journey from $2.5 to $5 trillion economy, and their markets produced 17% compounded return. Japan did doubling of economy in 8 years, and their markets gave about 8% return. Not too great out here. China took just 5 years to double their economy from 2.5 to 5, and their markets produced 28%. Now, as India travels $2.5 to $5 trillion in next 10 years, I leave the question mark in your minds to think what our markets can actually deliver. In a snapshot, this is how the portfolio looks. It's a good blend of defensive as well as growth. So on the defensive side, we have levers, we have IT software, we have Colgate, we have Reliance. These are all the defensive out here. We have a good play on the rural agri side with Godrej Industries, Bayer Crop, Imami. We have decent exposure to pharma. Both these stocks have done extremely well in the last 1 year, more than doubled in the last 1 year. On the insurance side, we have Max Financial Services. The stock has been re-rated just a little while back, and we expect that the Axis Bank stake should be approved by IRDA maybe next 6 months or 1 year, and you could see some significant upside in the Max Financial Services insurance play. On the recovery side, we have some of the economic recovery plays out here: Container Corp, Cummins, Engineers. Auto, as you all know, the numbers are looking very good, so we have the auto exposure to 11%. And then we have some great value picks like ICICI Bank or Citibank, Aegis, L&T Infotech. So it's a nice mix of defensive and growth. It doesn't make sense being 100% defensive. It's always better to have defensive from short-term perspective to ride through the current volatility. But as we come out of the bottom of the cycle, both for the markets as well as the economy, the growth companies or the growth oriented companies will actually drive the portfolio in the towards the wealth creation journey. This is how I have basically divided the profit growth numbers for 22. So you have 32% of the portfolio slated to give 40% profit growth. You have 46% of portfolio which will give you growth anywhere between 20 and 40, and the rest of the portfolio will give you 10 to 20% growth. So all great names, great companies. I'll be surprised if you have not heard any of these names. Growth looks to be very, very strong in coming, and subsequent corresponding to that, the valuations look very attractive. So I would re-emphasize on the fact that that this portfolio, though the short-term performance has not been good, as I've explained to you, we have some great names out here. It's a good mix of large caps, mid caps, some few selected small caps, growth-oriented companies. Valuations are looking very, very reasonable. In fact, cheap to some extent. Ideally, one should look at top-ups. If not, I would suggest that you should at least remain invested in the portfolio to enjoy the positive journey in the portfolio. So with that, I would end. And Sankalp, over to you. Maybe you can invite Santosh to talk a little bit on some of the stocks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Sure. So, Santosh, if you can turn on your audio and video. So great. So what I believe often is, and it's a common saying, that with great power comes great responsibility, and the investor has given a great power to the fund management team at OMC, and so the responsibility is also huge. So like, Akhil, we've gotten the view clear that NTDOP has been a portfolio that might have done well earlier in the days, but the last couple of years to 3 years performance has not really been part to peers or even the market. So, I understand that you took some time to explain in the presentation that what is the view ahead, or what investors should ideally look at this product as. But can we have a discussion on what went wrong for NTDOP, or what could have what could have been the reason of this underperformance, and the recent changes that happened in the portfolio also seem that there could be a lot of the place to be desired, or a lot of scope for more desires. So over to you, Santosh or Akhil. Anyone can take this question. So to summarize, what went wrong or why it went wrong for our investor friends here to understand.
So before Santosh comes in, very clearly I've tried to explain. Certainly the performance has not come. So let's keep that as is where is. Now, as I explained to you, that this portfolio had roughly 65% of exposure to mid caps and small caps. In the last 3 years, mid caps and small caps have been completely out of favor. In fact, as I explained to you, the small caps are down by almost 40%, mid caps are down by 20%. So irrespective how much ever good company you are owning, since the whole market was down in that particular category, our stocks also took a beating. And as I've already demonstrated in one of the slides, that while the companies in the mid and the small cap space were doing fine in terms of their profit growth numbers, but the PE multiples were actually contracting. So that was one side of the pain. The second was post-COVID. As I told you, that the theme of this fund is basically to capitalize from the rising discretionary spends as the economy will grow. So this portfolio was tilted towards banking, financial services, and consumer discretionary ideas. Post-COVID, this narrative changed, and there was a sharp correction in banking, financial, and some of the consumer discretionary names. That caused the performance to actually slip up, right? So those were the two broad reasons. We've not had a single company which is blown up. We don't have any company which is actually not doing good. So everything is fine. It's just that in the last few years, these companies have not been in trend, and anyways, in the last 3 years, the markets have been very, very polarized, right? So what has happened in this calendar year, January till October, broadly, the entire rally has been fueled by IT. It has been fueled by pharma and Reliance Industries. Now, those whose portfolios are tilted towards these two sectors and Reliance Industries would have tended to do better, and those who have not would have tended to underperform. Now we have tried to correct some of this by exiting out of those 3 banks which I talked about. We've added FMCG, Hindustan Lever, which is more FMCG staple and not discretionary name. We've added into Reliance Industries, and we've increased exposure to the software, right? And we are also now going in for the cement play through the Birla Corp. So those changes are now subtly being done, and I think we will. It will bounce back. So the reason of underperformance, as I said, was more about mid caps, small caps, not owning Reliance Industries, and higher allocation to consumer discretionary and banking financial.
Sure.
Now,
So,
Santosh, anything more you want to add?
So Santosh, while you answer that, just also tell our investor friends that why probably a couple of months back or a couple of years ago Reliance was not part of the portfolio, or what is the guidance ahead with the companies or with the new breed of or with the newer companies that you've gotten in, and what do you expect in terms of performance, given that mid caps or small caps might have been out of favor in the market, or you have made your changes keeping those facts in mind. So how does the portfolio look now, and what is it that you see from the portfolio in the next 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years maybe?
So let me start with Reliance, because that's, I think, is the most controversial one, because we didn't own it and now we are owning it after it went up a lot. Now the question is that why we were not owning it. If it was an oil and gas company, maybe we would have not owned it still. Okay. So it's so one is kind of exclusion mindedness. That is the clear thing. And then there we thought that it's now no more an oil and gas company. With Facebook coming in, with the likes of Google joining in. And see, I don't know how many of you have seen the Ant Group IPO currently, which is happening. They have raised around $30 billion, right, with an valuation of $300 billion. So when we are looking at an ecosystem play, which Reliance is trying to become, then the upside which can happen in that company, if they execute it well, is manifold more than where Reliance is today. Now, I'm not saying that Reliance will be able to execute it in a way that it will become an Ant Group or it will become something else. But with that sort of, if things are moving in that direction, if the likes of Google, if the likes of Facebook are joining them, then we remaining out of it, and so that was not making sense for us. And that's why we started owning Reliance. So that is the core reason why we started owning Reliance. It was more because of it is no more an oil and gas company. It is more of a ecosystem play with an IT backdrop, with a telecom backdrop, and with an e-commerce backdrop. So that is one part. Now, see, some of the changes we have made. So I think Akhil has pointed out that there are 3 things we are looking at. So if we find that in the past, Akhil pointed out that where we went wrong. So other than the fact that the portfolio was in durables, and we can say that COVID was a bad luck. So definitely, so for any discretionary portfolio with COVID coming in, it would have created a lot of problem for that portfolio. But other part was that there was a bit of profit booking problem with pricing. Now, so owning high P stocks at certain point in times, what we have realized, all our studies have told us that once the stock moves about 2.5, 3 peg, it becomes difficult to earn money out of it despite the growth. And that's what we saw, that in Page Industries or Eicher Motors, where the story didn't break. It was just that in stocks, what you know, that sometimes the returns are made upfront, sometimes it's back-ended, but the returns are made, and in some of these stocks, the returns became upfront. Now, that's what we are trying to change over last 1 year with a very strong IC, that wherever we see that the valuations have moved up significantly, we need to cut some of our stake, and that's what we have done in some of. So maybe with Bajaj Finance, where we have cut our stake after the valuations being too steep. So those are the changes we are making. So clearly, if you look at the changes, these are driven by that. Either the exclusion mindedness, where clearly we see the story going in a different direction, or if it being something which has become very expensive, or where the story is broken. So the other part is that when the story is broken, sometimes we may delay in selling it, and that's what we are now forcing, or we are talking with the fund managers, that whenever we see a story being in trouble, we sell it out, and that's what we saw in Federal Bank or Jammu and Kashmir Bank. So these are the things these are the sort of changes we are doing on a regular basis in this fund.
Right. So, this is a question to any, both of you, anybody can answer. So this is a more dynamic stock market then. So, you see a Reliance coming through as a platform business now. And although, it had announced that it plans to do some things like that a very long ago. I remember 2017-18 when Jio was launched, there was a talk of an entire ecosystem that being built around Reliance. So my question is, although not that, is how does QGLP figure in this dynamic market where businesses are changing, an age-old, so the company that still owns one of the largest refineries like Reliance in Jamnagar becomes a platform company. The market's becoming more dynamic. So do you think that, the process of QGLP and buy right, sit tight has been shaken to its core?
So Akhil, I'll take it. I think it's so clearly the problem is not QGLP. QGLP, if you look at even Reliance, QGLP was clearly, it's not that if we would have not followed QGLP, we would have got Reliance right. Okay. So even we bought today Reliance is because a lot of QGL to a vast extent has improved so significantly in case of Reliance. That's it. When we are talking about the new age of business, yes, we can be blamed of being slightly slow in recognizing the change which was happening in Reliance. So the recognition of that can be that was maybe slower, but once we recognize that the change has happened in case of Reliance, and it doesn't make sense to sit out of it simply because if you look at even the quality part with Facebook coming in or Google coming in, it started giving us a lot of comfort because with Facebook and Google sort of investors, the quality also means the comfort on the quality also becomes much higher, and growth longevity with the platforms was much higher. So I would not say in the current market, see, the way to make money is actually QGLP, and buy right, sit tight is also not a problem. The problem is that buy right, and if we keep sitting on it despite knowing that the story has broken, and that's what we are. So it's not about if a story is doing good, you need to sit on it. When the story, there's a problem with the story, or if the valuations are run off ahead of their time, then we need to be slightly dynamic. And I think Akhil has pointed out that this is one part which we are bringing, the dynamism part, which you have brought in quite significantly, and which is also visible in some of the portfolio changes we are doing.
Right. Thank you. So now we will quickly take a question on one of your other, top holdings. We did a poll on what the investors want to discuss first. So obviously Reliance was the top thing that they wanted to discuss. The other two stocks were Max Financials and Eicher Motors. So can you just take some time before we move on to other questions to discuss these stocks in the portfolio, Max Financials and Eicher?
So I think, see, Max Financials, clearly, if we look at from a quality parameter, if you compare it with the quality parameter, it is at the top end compared to any other life insurance company. It is at the top end. It competes really well with any other life insurance company. And it has recently re-rated, but there was a re-rating in between, and that was mainly because of the uncertainty around what is happening with the Axis deal. So we said, see, firstly, if the quality parameter was broken in Max, we would have exited so long back, but the quality was doing very well there. It was just a question of the uncertainty going around Axis. Now, I'm hoping that today, it's just, I think maybe RBI was waiting for our call, so maybe they have done it today. So just before our call, there was an announcement that Axis has gone in the direct route and is going to acquire 20% of the Max with only 9% through Axis Bank, which means that now the approval of RBI may be in the direct route. So that is one certainty which is going off. And I think today Max also reported, and its numbers were way ahead of any other life insurance company which has reported till now. So see, so thing is, what we could see is that life insurance as a place we like really a lot. And then we have got three companies to choose from, which are at the top end of it: HDFC Life, Max, and SBI Life. And we clearly thought that, okay, HDFC Life we like, we own it across a lot of our funds. but the valuations there are steeper than Max, and then we thought that okay, from a valuation point of view and quality point of view, this is a better stock to own. So yeah, so that's around Max that we clearly think that there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of money to be made there. Now coming back to iShares, see, I can say that maybe if you would have asked me this question 2.5, 3 years back, I would have said that okay, maybe the valuations are getting steeper. But if I am seeing it today, actually the business has done well. The valuations, and because in last 3 years the stock is down, the valuations have corrected significantly. And if I look at the two-wheelers, this is the discretionary, the real discretionary part of two-wheeler, because the other parts which are actually the heroes of the world or Bajajes of the world, those are all need-based. This is the more discretionary part, and it is dependent on the wealth effect. So this is one part, and which is going to do well. Now the question was that in between, because of the BS4, BS6 transition, we had 1 year of problem, and the high valuations caused the problem. But now we are in a phase where there has been a management change. The management wants to make it much more commercial. We clearly see that the volumes are coming in. So here as well, there is a chance of not only it compounding, but there could be a re-rating as well in the stock.
Right. So, at this point, let me take a moment and, really compliment you guys on maybe Kotak or LTTS as stock picks, which have done really well. And, when we see that, see these kind of picks in the portfolio where an LTTS has actually, I think, done really well, and Kotak has also done really well. And this comprises at least 15% of your portfolio. So, going ahead, I hope that is the trend that we see from the portfolio. And what my next question is going to be is how does an investor, this is from a very maybe I'd like Akhil to take this question, how does an investor stay put through this journey, because all said and done the portfolio has been a one which is volatile and has seen some downturn. So how do you advise the investor to react, because he sees his hard-earned money and dropping, that can be a cause of this concern. So Akhil, any thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I'm also reading the chat box, so maybe this answers a lot of questions on the chat box. So see, when you invest money in equity oriented product, returns is not the start point, right? What you are buying, which manager, what is the philosophy, what is the portfolio. Eventually, what should give comfort to investors in bad times is what you are owning, right? Now, when you screen through the portfolio and when you look at names like Kotak Bank, when you look at names like Voltas, when you look at names like LTTS, Page, Bosch, iShares, all of these are very, very high quality companies. Their prices might not have moved, or the prices might have got corrected, but how are the business doing? How are the businesses likely to do? And when you are a long-term investor, which means that you believe in a company story for next 5-10 years, then you have to live through that journey of 5-10 years, as long as broadly the company's business model is intact and the growth journey is intact. There may be some short-term cycles of their profit growth numbers, but that is the time you need to be loyal to those companies. We have seen, and that's what in my initial presentation I spoke about, a lot of these multi-bagger names of today were just not moving for many, many years from the time we bought them in 8, 9, 10, like a Bajaj Finance, like a iShares, like a Page. For many years, they did not make any returns. And then you got 3 years when these companies gave you 10, 15, 20 times. And then your 10-year return became whatever you see. I mean, they're great wealth creation stories. Now, for those who owned Reliance Industries for many, many years, for 10 years, that stock did not give any return. But had you had patience and you believed in the Reliance Industries story, then in just 2 years, the stock is up 3 times and your 10-year return will look pretty good. So see, the earnings of companies are more linear, but the price, the stock price of the companies are not linear. In long run, when you look at when you plot the chart, which plots, let's say, the earnings number on one side and the returns on the other side, in medium to long term, there will be a correlation. In the short term, it will be quite volatile. The earnings will be going straight line and the price would be going, because the prices are impacted by a lot of macro factors, right? So it could be COVID, it could be some government policy. I mean, like a GST happened, demonetization happened, RERA came. All of these things, what happens is globally, oil prices go up, oil prices come down. All of these things play a role in how the markets behave in the short term. But in long term, markets will respect earnings. Market will give good valuations to the companies which produce some very strong earnings. When that happens, is nobody knows. And that there is where you need to keep the patience. And when you're not making money, you should just see the portfolio, see the names you have bought, and that should give you that comfort. That should give you the peaceful sleep in the night. What you're owning, if you're owning kachra, you have all the reasons to be scared. But if you're owning quality, you may not make money for some time, but eventually you will make money. That is what I firmly believe in.
Sure, thank you. So maybe Santosh, you can come on live for this question. So another of your top holdings from the portfolio is Page Industries, and we have associated Page Industries with Ramdevji stock picking for a while. So why don't you take some time and talk about how Page is still relevant today and how it is still a company of great virtue and value. And also, while we are at that discussing consumer goods, one of your latest entrants, HUL, is also something you can shed some light upon. Over to you, Santosh.
Okay, so see, Page Industries, definitely last 3 years for the stock has been not that great, but the company has done well. There has been no problem with the performance. It's been about the stock which has not done really well. And also one thing which happened with Page was that there was a lot of competition also came in last 1 or 2 years. But what we could clearly, you can still see that Page is way ahead of competition now with Athleisure, new launches on Athleisure, and even the other competitors facing some trouble. Page is way ahead of its competitor on the innerwear brand, clear. Now the question is that if the stock has not done well, what were we doing actually? Why were we not selling? See, that the point is that we were not looking at. We were looking at the performance of the company clearly, and it came as a surprise to us also, the COVID part, because COVID part in recent times has caused some problem. That's for sure, and I would not use it as an excuse or anything. But yeah, COVID has done some problem and created some. But what it has also done is that the positive impact of it is a lot of their competition is in more trouble than Page itself, because it has given time to Page to work around its distribution, to work with their dealerships and all. And now what we can expect is that then they again start getting some bit of more market share. They already have significant market share, and they start getting some more market share from here. So this is one company where our concern on earnings is not at all there. We do our channel checks. We have talked to so many people in the industry, and clearly we don't have any concerns on earnings. And now the valuations are also really because, and the reason is because the stock has corrected, or the stock has not done really well over last 3 years. The valuations are also in a much more comfortable zone now. So from here on, I don't expect to be anyway worried about Page, because this is one part of the business where India will do well. We will premiumize on our innerwear, on Athleisure. We are going to premiumize, and Page is the market leader by some margin in this particular line of product. So that's one part. About levers, see again, there could be question that why levers now at 2100, why or around 1800 or 1900, why not levers at 800 or 700? Now, so there are 2-3 things here. Firstly, with levers, what we know that this will be the fastest growing company in this space, in the consumer, you can say the staple space. This will be the fastest growing company after its acquisition. And there are so many levers after that acquisition which can be utilized to grow the EPS much faster in next 2 to 3 years. So there is that clear-cut EPS trajectory available to us. And so the pricing also is not that bad if you compare it with other staples company. So and this is one stock which may not be, I would say, which is not something where I can say that okay, it is a doubler in 3 years or anything like that. This is one stock which gives a lot of comfort to the fund manager on his portfolio. The stability of the performance goes up significantly here. So these are some. So as Akhil was pointing out, that there are some stabilizers in the portfolio, and this is one of the stocks which is a big stabilizer to the portfolio, with a consistent compounding available, and there is a possibility of a EPS surprise because of its new acquisition. So, that's the reason why levers is there in the portfolio.
Right. So on behalf of investor, my next question might be a bit hard hitting. So excuse me, guys, if you hate me for that. But what we have seen there, what we come to understand is that this portfolio could be volatile. So my question to you both is, do we expect this as a trend? That NTDOP is a portfolio that does well in a relatively longer time, but is gets into a volatile kind of a phase on and off. So is that something that is going to be a feature of the portfolio? Also, maybe you can probably tell us a few of the exclusions in the exits from the portfolio have come a little late, and the inclusions might have also been a little have taken a little longer than they should have. So any thoughts on this, please?
See, Sankalp, I'll take the first one. Second one, maybe Santosh can talk about. All equity portfolios are volatile. All equity portfolios, whoever it is, will go through cycles of performance, cycles of underperformance. We've had I've presented to you a 13-year track record. I can break this up into 1-year returns. I can break this into 3-year returns. Even I've shown all of those data points. 9 out of 10 times we have outperformed the markets. 9 out of 10 times we have given positive returns. For the first time in 13 years, we have drag in the portfolio, and we are humble enough to realize that yes, there is a drag. There are certain things we need to change, and we are trying to change that to make the portfolio lesser volatile. Anyway, this portfolio is designed to be less volatile and not more volatile, because it's a large portfolio with 7,000 crores in size. The composition of larger companies in this portfolio, so if you combine large caps and mid caps, would be more like 90%. So if you look at the beta of the portfolio, also will be under 0.8. So the portfolio is not volatile. It has just had a one bad year, and that one bad year has taken a toll on the 3-year performance. Similarly, one good year will also ensure that the previous 2, 3, 5 years start to look good again. And as we speak, investors who have put their money 5 years back or 10 years back are not having concerns. Though people who have put 3 years back or 2 years back are having concerns. Once they live through a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year journey, they will also be in a zone where they would be probably satisfied. This is not unique to Motilal Oswal. This is common to all equity portfolios. You can give me one portfolio which never falls down, and you can give me one name of portfolio which actually just keeps going up. It will all go up. All portfolios, different managers, different styles of investing, different points of time will go through good times, and different points of time will go through bad times. That's the way, that's the nature of the market, and we are all part of the market, and all funds will go through their own cycle. So that's the first part. And I would like to again correct, the fund is not designed to be a high volatile fund. IOP, which is a small cap portfolio, by design is a high volatile fund because it invests into small cap companies. This is a multi-cap scheme with larger weights into large caps and mid caps, is to ensure that the volatility is lower. The question is not about volatility. The question is about the relative underperformance, which also, if I quantify, will not be more than 1.5% or 2% if you look on a 3-year basis, right? So, and we are trying to correct that. We are trying to make changes. Now you can say that in hindsight we have sold few and we have not sold many companies, right? There was a Jammu Kashmir Bank which was 0.2% allocation in the portfolio. Even if it would become 0, nothing is changing in the portfolio. We removed that because it was not adding any value to the portfolio. We cut that off. Federal Bank and Bajaj Finance was more of a fundamental sell. Against that, we wanted to buy companies like Reliance. So to buy something, I have to sell something. So we reduced the financials and we bought into levers, we bought into Reliance, and we have added weights to the L&T Technology Services. So not too many changes have happened. Just 3 new stocks have come in, 3 stocks have gone out, and 1 stock, the weights have gone up. So we are sticking to our buy and hold stance. Our 80% of the portfolio is intact, and we are very confident that the same names which made this portfolio successful, it is still a successful portfolio on a 10-year basis. These very names will make the portfolio successful in the future. Now it is going to be all about trust, and it is going to be all about patience, which the investors keep. Santosh, you want to add?
Right, before Santosh, before you add on to that, let me just point it out to investors that NTDOP has a 15% CAGR return in the last 10 years, so which is not an easy feat by any means. So the fund has performed. So while you answer the question, Santosh, maybe you can highlight to us what has worked for NTDOP. I'm sure there have been a few successful names like Bajaj Finance was. Probably LTTS also was. So, after you answer the first question, maybe you can share your successes on what you have learned from them as well. Over to you, Santosh.
Okay, so I think that to start with the first one, which Akhil, I think most of the part has already answered, that why we sold Federal Bank at whatever price we sold and not at 130 rupees or Jammu and Kashmir whatever it was, and why we didn't buy Reliance at 1,000 rupees. So the point is, if we would have done it, maybe this question would have not come, but let me still answer it. The Federal Bank, Jammu and Kashmir Bank, as Akhil was pointing out, it was a small exposure. But let me tell you why that exposure was there also. Jammu and Kashmir Bank was, if you would have gone 3-4 years back, no, it was a really well performing bank. Now it was the problem was not there, but suddenly things in Jammu and Kashmir state itself started to do badly, and there were so many problems with the governance. And once these things start to happen in a small cap stock, you have to exit it takes a lot of time. It's not that you can exit it if you know that at 100 rupees that problem has happened, you can sell it at 100, it doesn't sell out. So the thing is, Jammu and Kashmir is where the hypothesis itself went wrong. So, and that was because we may have got the political scenario wrong, we may have got whatever we may have got wrong, but yeah, the story went wrong. Federal Bank, it's not about the story, it's about the opportunity. See, when the corona crisis happened, now Federal Bank is still going to do well. I would not say that Federal Bank is going to do badly from here as well. So when the COVID crisis impacted, it impacted across the board, and it was going to impact the smaller ones more than the larger ones. So it's not going to happen that Federal Bank will remain at this price. It's going to jump up from here because the prices here is quite good. But at the same point in time, what we could see is that the story which is getting benefited from it is also we are getting it at a decent valuation, and the story which is getting impacted for a longer time is also means we can actually sell out and we can buy into a better story at that particular point. And then it was because of that reason. It was not that Federal Bank story is broken. Means that thing is not going to happen. That story is not broken at all. So. And I would come back to the second part, and I would again come back to Jammu and Kashmir Bank after in the end. Okay, so Bajaj Finance or something like that. See, if you look at the fund manager, and what he's done brilliantly is buying the stocks when nobody was thinking, buying the stocks ahead of everyone else. So be it the Bajaj Finance, when Bajaj Finance, see, if you go into the history of Bajaj Finance in 2007-8, it almost went bankrupt. And you know that the management which joined it also came from a company which was in trouble. So means one could have said that, okay, you have bought into a company where the management as well as the company both have not done well in the past. But we could clearly see that the management, it wasn't the fault of the management why things happened in the earlier company, and even Bajaj Finance was changing its business model. So that the fund manager took that bet and it paid off significantly well. So that the reason why he did well was that he was able to identify way ahead of the market participants that this is the management I want to bet into, and this is the business model I want to bet into. Whereas both of them, the performance in the past was not that great. Okay, after 2008-9, there was so much of trouble. I think most of us would have seen that phase, and we know that what phase Bajaj Finance went through. Or be it even Eicher Motors, the Bullet was not a franchise. I don't know how many people were backing Bullet franchise in 2009-10. Because after 99, when I was in college in say 99-2000, Bullet was a craze. And after that, I didn't see Bullet. But the fund manager had that vision to say, go ahead and take that risk and buy into a franchise, which was because he saw certain things happening there. So the success was that identifying the stocks way ahead of the market and taking that call. And I think, where we might have gone wrong is staying slightly long in those stocks at higher valuations. because Akhil pointed out that a lot of our losses, or you can say underperformance, is because of the same stocks where we had significant outperformance. Because we had the profits upfront, and maybe we stayed slightly longer. So that's where the stocks become expensive, and we had to sit with those underperformance for 2-3 years, and those were very high weights. And with those high weights, you get the underperformance, you get into trouble. So it's clearly what we have learned is, firstly, don't be afraid of taking bets which can be multi-baggers. So we are not afraid of that. So we are willing to take the bets which are multi-baggers. But at the same point in time, if the same multi-baggers have become expensive, significantly expensive, and the future growth rates are not much higher, we should be willing to sort of trim our positions. We should be willing to book our profits and get into something else. So definitely buy right, sit tight. We still are there with it, but we definitely want to be dynamic now while doing our allocation. So this is one more thing which we have learned from it.
Right, point well taken, and I have to agree with Akhil and Santosh here that the portfolio looks good. There are good companies and good businesses, sizable businesses that are there in the portfolio, and I'm hopeful that in the coming days we will see NTDOP do well on a standalone basis and compared to peers or the index, whatever. So while we conclude this discussion here today, can we just take some time to discuss the sectors that you feel, or let's put it this way, can we discuss anything that you are looking at, including in the fund, or future looking kind of a thought on what the fund might do, and maybe lastly, in my last question I asked about your past winners. I think maybe you can discuss a Voltas or an LTTS for us. And so 2 parts to the question. One is your past winners, stock specific past winners, to give some perspective and thought to the investors here, and any other plans that you might, or is a tentative allocation strategy change that is going to come about.
Santosh, you want to do, or you want me to go ahead?
You tell me, Vince. I can take one part of it, and you will have to help me out with some of the parts. So I can start with. Okay, so the past winners we have already discussed about what we had in the past winners. So if you look at currently Voltas or LTTS, okay, so it's not just Voltas and LTTS. I think there are 4 or 5 names where we think a significant amount of money can be made, and then this could be multi-baggers. So Voltas is clearly one of those because it is our highest allocation. So that would be already telling you that what sort of comfort we have with the stock. So it's a discretionary stock, and today it's discretionary. But I don't think air conditioners in next 5 years, 7 years are going to be a discretionary product with the increase in our income levels. So air conditioners are not going to be discretionary when today it is, and and the other part of the equation is that Voltas is market leader, and distribution making, these are all distribution plays. If you look at air conditioner, you will not find that actually what Voltas can do, others can't do. In making air conditioner, they can always make a new air conditioner, but it's about the quality, it's about the service after that, it's about the distribution channel creation, it's about the brand building, which is very, very difficult to do over a period of time. And that's what Voltas has shown with its significant market share. Now, what they've also done is they have entered into other appliance businesses with Beko. Now that Beko JV is an option value, we still are not paying for it. But if it delivers with the Voltas distribution, if it delivers, then we are going to see significant amount of money to be made even through the distribution part of it. Then the insurance team which we are playing through Max, we think that insurance is at a place where banking was somewhere around 2002-03 with all the corporate banks and PSUs only around there. And when the retail banks picked up, we had almost 15-17 years, and the story is still evolving only. It's not still done, but the story is still evolving. But yeah, our 15-17 years, those private sector banks and the retail oriented banks have done really well. Same is going to happen with the life insurance companies, and more so with COVID, we will see that the products will expand, the type of product we buy will change, and that's what we are playing that theme, and we are playing. The option is you play some of the schemes we are playing it through HDFC Life, and some of the schemes we are playing through Max Life. Max Life is where we find that there is a significant valuation gap along with the compounding gap. So that's another stock where we think a lot of value can be created. So be it LTTS, the LTTS, if you look at in the recent times, when the crisis happened, this was one of the stocks which didn't do well, because this is not a real, this is not a core sort of the way Indian IT is. It's not like Infosys or it's not like TCS. It's a services company. It's a it's more into engineering products. And what you will find is this is an area where core competence is needed, and LTTS, given its L&T lineage, that core competence is there to a significant vast extent. So whenever the market opens up, see today, if I say that I am going to invest significantly in an engineering company, who would say, okay, I've gone mad, because engineering today, who invests in engineering today in the COVID era? But I don't think we are staying with COVID era for so long or longer period. But once this thing comes in, once the engineering part comes in, LTTS with its technical background and a technology company has got the significant competitive advantage over others. So that's another area where we are quite comfortable with. When we think that again, this is another area which is where we can do what we have done with maybe a Page or iShares in the past. So there are multiple companies like that. And yeah, means I could see a lot of questions around why it means we don't own some of the different companies or some of the different themes. See, the thing is that what has worked in last 2 years, we can say that we should own all of it. Means that's not possible. Means we are owning Reliance, which did well in last 2 years. Why we are owning Reliance today? Because we think that the theme has just started, and if they execute well, that can be a very long-term phenomena. And see, we think that going forward, maybe we are not averse to making changes. We are not averse to making any changes in the portfolio. That's definitely we are not averse to. But if at all our themes come into play, and if we know that we missed it by say 3 months or 4 months, but there is a long way to go and the stock has doubled, it's not that we'll sit on the sidelines. Maybe, and that's why we are getting exclusion mindedness clearly there. That if the stock goes up just in the first phase, and just because it has gone up, we are not going to leave it. We work on it, and if we find significant opportunity, we'll buy it. So that's what we are talking about. So Akhil, you want to add? Or
yeah, so on the first question, some of the sectors we are finding obviously attractive going forward. Post COVID, things have changed, the scenario has changed. I think next few years the category winners will change, and the winning categories will also change. We feel that going forward, insurance as a sector has a long runway to growth. Santosh has explained to you, we are playing through Max Financial, and we also have HDFC Standard Life there. Healthcare, pharma, these will be the new emerging themes where a lot of wealth creation can happen in the next few years. Telecom is coming up because everything is getting digitalized. More and more companies are getting pushed to be digital. Data is going to be very, very critical, and therefore telecom companies will be in vogue in India. There has been consolidation in the telecom sector, and Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel are two plays in the telecom sector. In the banking space, we clearly at this stage want to bet on very, very high quality banks, preferably into the large sized private sector banks like a Kotak or a HDFC or a ICICI. These are the names we are comfortable in the banking financial side. And then obviously your consumer staples. So whether it's a Lever or it is a ITC or a Dabur or a Imami, I mean, these are some of the names on the FMCG staples. So basically stick to consumer essentials, consumer staples, essential needs, and some amount of the portfolio also has to be positioned around the economic proxy. So you have to balance your portfolio across these themes, and that is how our portfolios, not only NTDAW, but actually if you just look at across our portfolios, slowly, steadily we are getting aligned more towards these sectors where we see there is future potential of growth.
Right. So, at this point in time, let me just put my perspective here is that, in the long term, people who've learned through their mistakes eventually in the market make money. And, this fund has also exhibited similar characters. I understand the last couple of years have been tough. So we will, end today's call with the last question, on one stock from your portfolio, to give the investors the flavor of the new avatar of NTDOP, which is LTTS. Santosh, if you can probably tell us the story there, as an indicative way of the companies that this portfolio will be holding in the times ahead. Over to you, Santosh.
So you want me to talk about which are the stocks we will be holding in future? Maybe
No, LTTS, L&T Technology Services.
So what I request you is, Santosh, use LTTS as a case in point on the kind of stocks that NTDOP will hold in the future and the stories that it is looking at.
So Akhil has pointed out the themes or the sectors which we are clearly quite bullish on, and we like it. So LTTS, see, one can argue that between LTTS and LTI, we could have bought LTI and we could have done really well. If we would have known that there was going to be a COVID, we would have bought only LTI. We would have not bought LTTS. Because the reason LTTS is there, because simply we believe that this is a company which has got the competitive advantage there, because there is a technical know-how which only lies with LTTS and most of the not with most of the other companies. It's an engineering sort of a technology company, and in the current era, that's a little bit of problem. But we are definitely going to look at companies who enjoy competitive advantage in any of the technological fields. So going forward, if I'm looking at tech, and then say tech is an area where we think there is a lot of money to be made in next 10 years. And when I say tech, I don't talk about that, okay, Infy and TCS are the only tech. If you look at US, today, most of the companies which are making, which are big and which are making a lot of money are tech with platforms. And what you could find is that differentiating between a bank and a sort of a consumer company and a tech company is becoming too difficult. So that's wherever we think that the company is enjoying competitive advantage, be it in the tech space, we clearly think that a lot can be done more. Maybe there could be more additions in this space where if you find a great platform to add with, we can definitely go there. So if we find anything in the tech space which has got competitive advantage and which is different from others, we will go ahead with it. So that is one part. The other part is insurance, which Akhil talked about. Now today we are with Max, but it's not that we are married to Max. Okay, if say tomorrow, if Max says that, okay, means that the way insurance is distributed changes, and which is happening globally, we know that this theme, insurance as a theme, is going to work out. It's going to be a very big area to be there. But if at all the way it is being distributed or the way the insurance is happening changes significantly, we might end up with something different, which has a competitive advantage. Today we are with Max because we clearly see that they have an edge in this part of the business and the valuations are right. So we will definitely be in this area. We can be in general insurance area as well. Means today we only find one opportunity. There could be multiple opportunity, and general insurance could be a big area we can be in. We are in financials, and we have been in consumer lending areas. So till now we were in consumer lending areas. I don't know the future, but it could be that from consumer lending we move to payment areas, because that could be a significant area to be in. Because till now, see, consumer was the area where highest money was to be made in the past. In future, that may not be the area where highest money is to be made. So we might change from there. So they, like LTTS, wherever we find that there are companies which are disruptive, which have got competitive advantage, which have got clientele, we will definitely go there.
Right. So as I conclude this call, let me just put a thought to the investors here. So equity is not a linear asset class. Equity is not like FD where you get 3%, 4%, 10%, whatever fixed returns every year. What happens is in equity, a lot of time even the greatest of companies, due to maybe a strategy mishap or something like that, stay with stagnated share prices for a very long time. It happened with A-grade companies like HUL. It happened with Reliance. It happened with companies like, the stars of the current bull run, with Bata, with Trent. So what happens is in equity, patience pays. And with a lot of investors that I am seeing, they are complaining about returns in the last 2 to 3 years being negative. Markets are beyond that. The markets won't stop in the next 2 to 3 years. The markets will stay on as long as we have a functioning economy in the country. So what matters then is that you have good companies, you have good businesses in your portfolio. The stock market is here to stay. And as long as the businesses that you have bought perform, you have to be assured that your stock prices will see appreciation and you will create wealth. Wealth is not created, my dear sirs and madams, in 2 or 3 years. So with that, in mind, what I will also like to put some balance or perspective on NTDOP is that NTDOP is a fund that has delivered 600% absolute returns in the last 10 years, which is no easy feat, and it happens often, like I said. So I will with this invite all our investor friends to come check our platform. We also show 10-year returns for the different funds that have been there for that long. You can have a comparison and probably understand that how portfolios perform over time. And with that, I would like to take your leave for the night. Thank you, Akhil. Thank you, Santosh. Maybe if you guys have anything to add, I am happy to.
I just want to conclude with just one line. I've read through a lot of questions, and I'm really sorry that all of the questions have not been answered on this call, but we've tried to answer as many as possible. I want to assure you that we are doing work 24/7. You may not see that physically happening, but there is a lot of work, a lot of efforts being put to ensure that the performances come back to the past glories, what we have delivered in the past. Broadly, this 1 year of post-COVID kind of a situation has taken a toll. As we come out of this and as we go back into the growth cycle, whether it is economy or the earnings growth cycle, all the companies we are owning in this portfolio are good companies, and these same companies will produce a lot of returns. But the assurance I'm giving you is that there is action happening. There is a lot of progress from where we started a couple of months back, and we talked today. There is a lot of progress through various ways and means. We are talking to all the investors, whether it is PMS AIF World or whether it is through our distribution partners or through our direct investor base. We are communicating as much as possible. I know that till such time the returns are not there, nothing will satisfy you. But for that to really come out, I urge all of you to keep little patience. Be optimistic. When you invest in equities, the first thing you need to do is be optimistic. Be optimistic on MOAMC. Be optimistic on the QGLP philosophy. Be optimistic on the portfolio, on the stocks you're owning. We have done well in the past, and we will do well in the future. There are blips in between, and those blips are where we put this tagline of sitting tight. It will pay you off more than anything for all the patience you're keeping for this 2 years, 3 years of relative underperformance. So that's something I want to leave you with, the assurance and a positive and an optimist note. Thank you, Sankalp, and thank you everyone for spending almost 2 hours, 1.5 hours, 90 minutes, the long session. And we will keep coming out and we will keep talking to you, and let's hope for the best. Thank you, Sankalp.
Sure. Thank you, everybody on the call. Thank you to the audience. For any questions that remain unanswered, we will be happy to take. Please email them to us at contact@pmscaif.com. And you can visit our platform to check out all the portfolios that have been there. And we also now represent 10-year returns, which is not normally available. We welcome you on the platform, and we welcome all your questions. Thank you for all your time. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you, Akhil.
Thank you. Bye-bye.